Monday morning on Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy, and between 8 and 9, the one and only Cameron Smith joins us, and our audience gets bigger and bigger. Welcome now to our Queensland stations. Joining us through SEN 693 AM in Brisbane, 1620 AM on the Gold Coast, and the SEN Track Network right across regional Queensland. Well, there'd be plenty of smiling rugby league fans across Queensland because all four Queensland sides won at Magic Round. In fact, one of our texters has come online and said, no, Vossy, actually, you're wrong. Not all the Queensland teams won. The Storm lost to the Rabbitohs. Yes, that is a rare loss at Suncorp for Melbourne. There's Cameron Smith in the background. You were part of that amazing run. I mean, in your career, your win record at Suncorp must have been phenomenal.
Yeah, pretty.
Good morning, Cameron.
Morning, Vossy. Morning, Brandy. Morning to all the listeners.
Cameron?
Yeah, I think, looking back on my career, particularly with Melbourne Storm, our games at Suncorp, I can't particularly remember how many we lost. We certainly won a lot more than what we lost, Vossy. And I think those games that we did lose would have been pretty early on, sort of, 04, 05 maybe. But we went on a stretch there of about a decade where we didn't lose at all at Suncorp. The one game I do remember losing was against the Titans. And I think you may have called that game. It was 34-36.
Yeah, what'd you get? 30? Yeah, ridiculous.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah, Craig Bellamy, he was not happy after that one.
All right, Cameron, right off the top of the program, Magic Round, Brandy. Yeah, Magic Round for you, Cameron, as a Queenslander. Could it ever go anywhere else? Has Brisbane earned the right to host it all time based on the success that it's been? And you played all your career down in Melbourne, so you could say, does Melbourne have rights to it? Could they do it better? What's your thoughts?
Oh, look, I think given the turnout across the weekend, and I know we had people, travel from interstate and from, they travelled some distance to be there for either 1 day, 2 days, or across the entire weekend, the 3 days of what was a fantastic weekend. To have sellouts for every day, I think Brisbane deserves to hold it at least for another couple of years. They've done such a good job. Not only, with the stadium, we know how good Suncorp Stadium is, and all the players thoroughly enjoy playing at that ground. It's great for fans. It's great. Just the precinct in and around Suncorp Stadium, I think, is fantastic. It's right on the edge of town. There's access to Caxton Street, so all the punters are happy to get up there in the lead up to the matches, particularly on the Saturday and the Sundays. But, yeah, what a weekend it was. I know you guys are involved across the entire weekend. It was just nice to see, the whole rugby league community come together. And there has been, other cities across Australia and even New Zealand tossed up to host this wonderful weekend, which, I think will work, but could it be done as good as it's done in Brisbane? I'm not too sure, but what a great weekend it was.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think, look, the time difference with the Kiwis, that's the only reason. I think New Zealand could host it, maybe, but the 2 hour time difference kills any chance of that happening because of you can't have your games in prime time back here in Australia.
That's right.
You can't be playing games. Yeah, so even though the Kiwis probably deserve a crack at some stage, it's just going to not work there, and I don't think any other city could do it as well as what Brisbane does it. So why even think about changing it at the moment? No need to change. Let's go, Cam. Let's just go back to the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
Saturday night's game against the Bunnies. What did you make of it? And you said Craig Bellamy wasn't happy after your loss to the Titans many years back. But I'm pretty sure he would have been frustrated too with their performance on Saturday night. Yeah,
I think he was most definitely, Brandy. First and foremost, conceding 28, and I know they've taken on the Rabbitohs, who, excuse me, have been in red hot form over the last 5 weeks now. Their last loss was actually against the Melbourne Storm in Sydney. But I think conceding the 28, that would be first and foremost Craig's biggest issue. But even if you look at the Storm's 12 points that they scored their first one off a kick just before halftime, which, it come off, Cody Walker, the ball was in Cody Walker's hands. So it come off an error from Cody, and then Melbourne Storm player jumped on the ball under the post, 6 points there. And then the second try, it come from a Bronson Garlic run from dummy half, which, looking at how it was scored, you'd probably say Latrell Mitchell was out of position and should have stopped that. So that's another concern for Craig, I guess, the lack of creativity in attack as well. And they didn't look like they were in the contest ever, Brandy. I don't know how you've seen it, but watching it from the sideline, they never looked like they were going to outplay the Rabbitohs on the weekend. So that's a concern for Craig. It's a concern for the Melbourne Storm because you sit there and wonder to yourself, do they have any more gears to get moving forward in the competition? Now they're coming into a pretty crucial period now where they're probably going to have 2 or 3, maybe 4 players out through State of Origin period. How do they handle that? And then how do they handle the back end of the year when those players come back as well?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I thought it was the quietest game I've seen from Cameron Munster this year, and I thought, well, that says a fair bit about Melbourne. If Cam Munster doesn't play well, if he's not creating the chances, the tries, the line breaks, well, all of a sudden there wasn't much happening with the ball.
Yeah, well, the games where they haven't played so well, their poorest performances of the year, if you remember back to the start of the year, it was after Cam Munster had that dislocated finger. And I think he was out for maybe, what was it, 2? He was definitely out for 2 matches, might have been 3, and that's when they dropped a couple. So he's their most influential player. There's no doubt about that. So, for a player, as you mentioned, Brandy, when your most influential player, your most valuable player is quiet like he was the other night, then then it's going to be hard to win matches, particularly against the quality sides like the Rabbits. I think if they just need to go back and try and simplify their game a little bit, I think that may help. They just need to break it down so there's no confusion on the field. Everyone knows their role, play a basic game of football, and they're going to have to. They take on the league leaders this Thursday in Melbourne. They're taking on the Broncos, so it doesn't get any easier for Melbourne.
Big game,
Cameron,
Vossy.
can I ask you something? Huge game Thursday night, and it rolls around so quick, so back in we go. I tweeted out after the game, South Sydney, the other night, Cody Walker, and we've had all this debate from a New South Wales perspective. Nico Hines, will he be picked ahead of Jerome Luai? Very little discussion about Cody Walker, and I just tweeted out just to discuss. I wasn't saying he's my number 6 in the side. Is Cody Walker as good, if not better, than Nico Hines as a player? I'll get the opinion of Cameron Smith on that one. Cody Walker v. Nico Hines. Sum up the two.
Well, I guess if you when you look at Cody at his best, most definitely, like he can match it with any half in the competition. There's no doubt about that. The one thing going for Nico, in my opinion, is he's probably been a fair bit more consistent than Cody has been, and particularly over the last 18 months, 2 years. And that's why he took out the Dally M medal last year, was because of his consistency through every match that he played in 2022. But Cody at his best, there's very few people or very few halves in the competition that can do what Cody does. He just toyed with Melbourne the other night. And when you think of the Melbourne Storm, you think of one of the more sound defensive teams in the competition. But he just toyed with them when he had the football. He just made them, come out to him. He made the defensive team, play at a speed that he wanted to play at, and he just created opportunities all around him. So, look, he's in some ways he's been flying under the radar because the discussion has been around, well, will it be Luai? Will it be Hines? Who should be playing 6? I'll tell you what, Cody Walker has done himself a huge favour with the way he's played, particularly in the last 5 games, and particularly if Latrell Mitchell is playing anywhere in that back line or playing in the centres, you'd have to seriously ask the question, and maybe he might be the right man to go with. But you can't forget about the combination of Cleary and Luai. It's a really hard combination to forget about or look over. So I guess it's a great headache to have. As Brad Fittler as coach, and I know Brandy's heavily involved, it's a great headache to have 3 quality halves at your disposal.
Yeah, I don't think Cody's form over the last 2 or 3 years has been outstanding. Like Cody's club form for South, there's not a ball player that can do what Cody Walker does or does it as well as Cody. So there's no doubt that Cody's been there before. Cody's pulled the blue jersey on before. What about Tom Trbojevic, Cam? What do you make of Tom?
Well, I called this game, Brandy, on the Friday night, and just as a league fan, I guess, and love watching Tom play and our best players play. I was a little bit concerned, to be honest. Now I know there's been a lot of talk and speculation about his fitness and whether he's carrying injury. I think there's a little bit of both. Watching him move, and I watched him for a period of the game, particularly in the second half there. Just watching him move, he doesn't look like he's moving freely. He doesn't look confident to really open up or extend when he's running. And also, I don't think he's actually 100% fit, as in match fit. There was a period there towards the end of the game. There was about 10 minutes to go. He had a couple of efforts around the football when Manly were on the attack and they kicked downfield. He actually ran to the wing and sent Ruben Garrick to fullback to have a blow, just to have a spell. So and I know there's a lot of talk, and he actually looked a little bit frustrated post match, Tom, when he was interviewed about the game and asked particularly about his own fitness. I know he's been asked 1,000 times about what's going on, but to me, just watching him closely, it looks like there's a possibility he's carrying something, which a lot of players are at this stage, but it looks like he's playing with some sort of injury, and he's not 100% match fit. He's off, isn't he?
All righty.
Yep.
Listener questions coming in. Cameron Smith, our special guest, the GOAT, between 8 and 9 on Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy. Rafa's got on text and just said, Cameron Smith, Rugby League Superman. There you go. That's a nice start point for the morning on the text. From Rabbitoh Chris in Wyong, Magic Round must, in capital letters, stay in Brisbane. The minute you take that away from Brisbane is the time they demand grand finals in return.
Ooh.
Now, a question for you from Marcel Cameron.
Okay.
Could you please ask the GOAT if he thinks Brandon Smith is a genuine hooker or better option as an interchange player, 14 to 17? And also another question on the Roosters. Why would the Chooks be using Satili Tupanua in the middle of the field when he's been so effective as wide running back rower? A little breakdown, unpack the Roosters after yesterday, Cameron. First of all, on Brandon Smith, where would he be best served with a Roosters side?
That's they're two different questions, aren't they? Like, do I think he's a genuine hooker? Well, that's where he played all of his junior footy and even through 20s at the North Queensland Cowboys, and he was a very good number 9 there. He was like a bulldozing type number 9. Used to run a lot and score a lot of tries. But I think in the NRL, my personal opinion, I like him as a 13, or an interchange where he creates a lot of impact and carnage through the middle of the field. If he was to stay at Melbourne, that's where I seen his future was playing as a 13. Having that 1-2 punch with himself and Harry Grant in Melbourne would have been particularly lethal, really, in that forward pack. But moving to the Roosters, maybe that's his best position. I know there's been a little bit of chat recently about maybe they're still getting used to Brandon Smith and his style of play, but look, it's horses for courses, right? In Melbourne, I thought he was a great 13 or 14, but playing at the Roosters, maybe that's where they need him to play as a 9, and they just need to figure out the best way to get his best football and the team to play their best football with him at that position.
Yeah, they seem to have there seems to be a lot of things that the Roosters need to fix to play well, and we've got plenty of listeners wanting to have their say about who should be playing in what position. This one, Brandy Sawali hasn't made a break since signing for rugby. I guess he's already in rugby centre mode. And we've had a number of listeners say that Joseph Swaley might be better on the wing. Move Joey Manu back to the centres, Swali'i on the wing, and bring Sam Walker back. So there's a bit for Trent Robinson to think about. He's got a hell of a list in front of him.
Yeah.
But where those pieces fit best is what he's got to come up with.
Do you think Sam Walker gets a call up this week, Brandy, after that loss on the weekend? He's been out now for, 3 matches?
Yeah. Oh, was it the Warriors, the first game? Did they?
Yeah, Anzac game. He missed the Anzac game, and then
Anzac,
Warriors.
that's
and
right.
Then
So,
this week.
so 3 games. They've played 2 games in shocking conditions. So New Zealand was a belted down rain for the 80 minutes, and it was pretty ordinary at Suncorp on the weekend. I don't know, and I don't know if that's the answer. If Kiri and Manu is the best halves combination for them, Cameron. Maybe they give them one more, see how they go. But I'm not sure what the best combination for the Roosters is really.
Well, Penrith is the next opponent, so it's no easy. It's a big game, big game. So to suddenly go back there, you then start to wonder about Trent Robinson. It's almost like the story you gave us, Cameron, and this is very early in the season to be saying that, but you gave us that story. There was one point in Craig Bellamy's career where you lost, 5 in a row?
Yeah.
And he actually made the mission, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I wonder if Trent Robinson's at that point. I don't actually know what to do to get the best out of this side. What is the best combo? Smith, Swali'i, Manu, where does Walker fit? Kiri, I wonder if he's a little bit indecisive at the moment.
Well, particularly
totally committed.
Yeah, particularly Vossy, because he's got so many great individual players at his disposal. It's trying to fit. It's trying to piece the puzzle together, and how they all extract the best out of each other. And that's really that's where the best coaches earn their money, I guess, is that they piece together the puzzle of all of these wonderful players that they do have. And that's what made Craig Bellamy so good, was that he had a lot of great players at his disposal, and he come up with game plans and I guess roles for each of those players to go out and play, which not only gave them the best opportunity to play well, but to sort of encourage each other to play at their best as well. So the Roosters, certainly they've got a wonderfully talented squad. Just at the moment, it just doesn't seem like they've got the right combos, or it's not clicking for some reason.
All right, and as we go to a break, Eliban Neil says, boys, Trent Robinson needs a mid-season signing. Maybe sound at Penrith and see if Nathan Cleary's available. If they can get under the sombrero. Anyway, there's a question.
There's room. There's room there, I'm sure.
There's always room.
There's room. There's a little bit of room. Might be able to squeeze him in under the cap. 22 minutes after 8. Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy, plus the GOAT, Cameron Smith. Follow us on Twitter. Get all the content, all the best bits from the program at Vossy Brandy SEN. I've got rid of you there, Brandy. Just punted you. At Vossy Brandy SEN. Our interview with Mitchell Pearce from earlier today is there, and also on your podcast as well. Just search for Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy. And also on Twitter, I just saw a tweet came through. Michael Gcam has sent out a post this morning. Bloody freezing in Sydney. So there you go. The South Sydney back rowers summing up the feelings of many people. Very cold, yes. Snow last night in parts, Cameron, in just not too far out of Sydney. There was snow. Quite incredible, yeah. Wow. Cold snap has hit. Now, we have a $250 Signet prize. You know how good Signet are with the Power Boost banks. SEN and Signet are looking to reward mums this week by asking you, what is your mum's superpower? What is your mum's superpower? Get in touch on 0457 736 736 and let us know about your mum, and the best contribution will win a Signet voucher worth $250. What is your mum's superpower? Text in on 0457 736 736, Brandy.
Yes, Vossy. Now, Berkeley Eagles sent in a text message. Bill Knowles has turned our turbo into a two-stroke. Lads, I noticed at half-time of the Manly game, Jake gave Tom a good serve. Love to know what he said. I did see that. I saw Jake pull Tom in and say something to him. I don't know if he was giving Tom a serve, but he
had some words.
Might have been a little rev up. Just quickly. Boys, not sure if anyone else said this, but for a sellout over the whole weekend, there was a lot of empty seats at Suncorp. Love the show, Todd the Painter in Yamba. There was at different stages, but that doesn't mean all seats are sold, and people come and go at different times and watch different games. Yeah. Might stay for one game, might stay for all three on the Saturday and Sunday.
Brandy, at any one time, and you know it, the SEN studio had set up in the bar there, in the Paddington room at the Southern End. at any one time, there were never less than 500 people indoors. Like, they had seats outside, but they would come back to the bar, they get a nice feed, they watch the show, and they could still see on the big screens, and then they'd go back. It's a big slog. It's a long time out of the football. You're there for 6 and 7 hours, so you're not sitting in your seat in the stand the whole time. And you can go out the precinct, can't you, Cameron? You can go outside the ground during the day as well to take in all what's happening. That's what makes it so good. It is more than just the games, than just the games on the field.
Well, there was activations outside. There was sort of like fun areas for the kids and all that sort of stuff. As I said, like, people travelled long distances, didn't they, Vossy, to get to the ground? So they had all those fun areas, activation areas outside. Caxton Street was closed off, so you could walk up and down there. So, yeah, you could come and go as you please. But officially, every seat was sold out across the 3 days, which was huge.
Vanessa, thank you. We're here for Bryden's Lawyers. Unable to work due to injury or illness, contact Bryden's Lawyers. You can have your say on the open line, 1300 01 1170, or the Edgewater Homes text line, 0457 736 736. Edgewater Completed Homes now selling in Jordan Springs. Vossy?
Great text on Mum's Superpower, Signet promotion for $250. Kingswood Welders come in with the first nomination. He says, my mother's superpower is she is able to get the temperature of her meals hotter than the appliance used to cook it. Cool down time is longer than the cooking time. Great lady and best mum I have. This one, my mum's superpower is ability to put up with my endless dribble. She's a legend. We've all got to, they've just got to cop it, don't they? Just got to cop it. Cameron, I'm going to ask you the biggest question in the morning.
Yes.
And you've had chats on the captain's run, and I heard you were Den and Kemp, and this is for all the Dragons fans. Mm-hmm. What are the Dragons going to do, mate? What are the Dragons going to do? We are 10 rounds into the season. They're now equal last with the Tigers. Only twice this year if their opponent scored more tries. So it could have been so different. But seriously, mate, what are they going to do? Ben Hunt's their best player.
Yeah.
Does he have to go to hooker? What are they going to do?
Well, possibly. And there's been a little bit of chat about that, hasn't there? Maybe Ben Hunt to 9, but then what does that do for their sort of organisation and their ball playing out when they want to shift the football? I know they got some young halves in the club that are sort of building a career down there, but maybe they play their football from 9 if Ben Hunt's going to play there, and it's a lot of hard work. He's getting through a mountain of work at the moment. Like, I've watched some games of the Dragons, and if he doesn't play, they get beat by 30 or 40 points, seriously. So it's a difficult one. To be fair, I still believe that they're a much better football side than what they've been showing us. I don't know why they haven't been able to extract that quality out of themselves, and they would have been terribly disappointed losing to the West Tigers yesterday afternoon. But yeah, it's just not a great position at the moment. It seems as though there's that much the feeling of winning seems to have disappeared from that place, and it's a real thing, right? Like, when you win, and when you win often, you get a confidence and you have this ability to, even in tough games, just find a way to win. It's like they've lost that feeling, and they just don't know how to get the job done anymore. They've had numerous opportunities to win matches, close matches this year, and they just have not been able to find a way to do it. So for them, I guess, it's there's no secret to it. They just got to stick together and continue to work hard. Hopefully they can find some way to jag a win soon, a lot like the West Tigers. So they come up with a huge win against the Penrith Panthers, and then they go on to now win 2 in a row because they have that confidence and that feeling of winning. So they just got to find one, and that might bring 2 and 3, and it might change their fortunes. We've seen how close the competition is. Now, I know they're sitting low on the ladder, but if you string 2, 3, possibly 4 wins together this season, your fortunes can change so quickly.
Yeah, I just think some of the 5 losses they've had, they had to win a couple of those.
Yeah.
And they were in a position. And as Vossy's gone through the fact that there's only 2 games where they've scored, had less tries than their opposition.
Yeah.
So they just haven't been able to kick goals, take advantage of any of those close games. And with Ben Hunt, you sort of, because he's been their best player and he's been so good at 7, you're thinking, well, if he doesn't want to move, do you move him?
Mm.
Is it better for the team? It might be, with Jaden Sullivan showing that he can. He's got a bit of footy in him. But you just don't want to cruel what Ben Hunt's been doing at
That's
7
right.
either.
Yeah, that's right.
Moving him to 9.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one. Yeah, I don't know where they go.
Dragons. Text line 0457736736. More mum superpowers. Morning, Mr. Voss, Mr. Alexander, Mr. Smith. My mum's superpower is I drop my wrappers all over the yard and in the house, and they actually disappear. I leave dishes everywhere and in my room, and they disappear too. I don't have to clean up after myself, as when I come home from school, they're all cleaned up and sorted. Not that I recognise. Her other superpower is her cooking. Not sure how she can actually make things that taste amazingly delicious. Have a good day. Henry from the Park paying tribute to his mum, which is a lovely touch. A lovely touch. This one, what an awesome weekend of rugby league. If you can find Fulton that weekend, you'd score El McPherson a 5. What a great text.
I like it. That's a good analogy.
That sums it up beautifully.
Yeah.
That sums it up beautifully, because I'd give, if you can give more than 10 out of 10, I'm giving it for Magic Round. I keep saying it. I can't be any more glowing. I feel so privileged, Brandy. Cameron, we get to call it work.
Yes.
But if there are listeners out there that can somehow swing it to get to Magic Round next year, come up and experience for yourself. Try, take the book ahead. Book a year in advance if you know. It's a shame the NRL can't let everyone know a long way out, as in 9-10 months out, so they can book it in and make a real trip of it. But I just think it's outstanding. Now we go to the other end. Pull up your socks. All day socks by Underworks. Pass every test. Pick up a pair and test them for yourself. I'm tempted to say, we've had a few naysayers today say, nah, it's a gimmick and all of that. I'm almost tempted to say, pull up your socks to those who criticise Magic Round, but we probably need to go outside there. And this morning, when you look across the sporting spectre, I would think that pull up your socks. I don't know how things happen, but the player with, was it Ninkovic? I'll get the maestro in on it. How the hell did that happen that a visiting player, an opponent, ended up in the Sydney FC dressing room the other night and actually gets frog marched out? Now, I don't know the full story of all of that, but was he shit-stirring or what happened? But to have a player, an athlete, professional athlete, actually frog marched out of a dressing room and there's vision of it, that's not good for anyone, Maestro. Can you contribute to that?
Well, so this is a story going back to the start of the year when Milos Ninkovic made the transition from Sydney FC to the Wanderers, which was controversial in the first place. He had differences with Steve Corica over their agreement to keep him at the club. Promises were made and they fell through, and Ninkovic, some feel, played the antagonist by going to the Wanderers when he had other offers on the table, the biggest rivals of Sydney FC. He's still mates, obviously, with a lot of the Sydney FC players, and it looked as though he'd gone into the rooms. Everything was going pretty swimmingly until Corica turned up and basically asked, what's he doing in here? They had words, and he was essentially frog marched out to make sure they didn't come. They looked like they were going to come to blows, Vossy. It was just a ridiculous scenario.
Frog marched out. Cameron, as I said, this is professional leagues. This is not, park footy. This is the A-League final series, dressing room camera vision of a play, getting the arms around the back, like dragged out of the dressing room. It was amazing. So pull up your socks, because around the circumstances of that, but I'm all on the Sydney FC bus. Here we go. I'd love to be there on Friday night at Allianz. It's going to be huge. Brandy, have you got a nomination?
Pull up your socks. I thought over the Magic Round there was two sides that were very disappointing. Look, I know the Dragons fans were, dark that their team lost to the Tigers, but I Manly throw Manly and the Sharks into a hat and do your best. So I reckon both sides pull up your socks. Manly and the Sharks. Very disappointing over Magic Round.
Yeah, I agree. You've got my nomination as well there, Brandy. I had Manly. They're a much better footy side than that. And only thinking back what was a few weeks ago, maybe a month, where remember that brutal game against the Melbourne Storm? Where they just absolutely bashed the Storm out of the match, and they were as good as that's as good as any performance we've seen all year from any team in the comp. Yet now they show us that game against the Broncos. I know that they were missing Jake Trbojevic, and he does a lot of work for Manly away from the football that we don't see, which helps them play that style of footy. But one man down, that doesn't mean you turn up and play the way they did. They had no energy. They played with no physicality at all, and they let the Broncos just run riot, really.
Yeah, all of that for Underworks All Day Socks. Pass every test, pick up a pair and test them for yourself at 18 minutes to 9. Listeners right across the SEN app and the SEN network through Queensland. Great to have your company. Keep the questions coming and the nominations, the superpowers of your mum as well. We've got plenty more to come. Loving the text coming in. This is Son of Max from the Gong. My mum's superpower, her ability to win the family NRL tipping comp by selecting a team based on where she would prefer to go on holiday to. It's uncanny how many times this method has worked. E.g. Eels Titans last night. Would I rather go to Parramatta or Gold Coast for a holiday? Very good. There you go. Son of Max from the Gong. Great question here for you, Cameron.
Yes.
Was Cameron ever frog marched out of the ref's dressing room after getting a bit confused? Yes or no?
Sorry, boys.
No, I never was, actually. No, not once.
They were happy to have him in there.
They had a cup of tea ready and everything, a couple of bickies.
Touche.
No.
Touche.
Never went in there.
Warrior Kiwi Rooster says, boys, I find it interesting that the Dragons sacked their kicker Lomax and replaced him with someone that has only kicked 11 goals in the NRL with worse percentage. Makes no sense. So obviously Lomax got dropped not just because he was missing goals.
Yeah.
But his percentage is 60. Like, he's now kicking it worse than Jack Bird's career stats. So, you can talk about his overall career record, but Lomax has fallen off the edge of a cliff with his goal kicking this year, and it's a massive issue. I mean, if Mitchell Moses, that was an incredible stat, Cameron. I need to get into the psyche of the goal kicker. Mitchell Moses is so streaky. Going into last night, he'd kicked 6 in a row from the left touchline. And he's always said to me, if I get my first kick, my whole game lifts. Like, he always feels good if he gets his first kick sideline his whole game.
Yep.
Last night he misses his first from the left touchline and goes on to miss 3 in a row. Having kicked 6 in a row, he misses 3 in a row, and Parramatta go down by 2. How do you change mid-game mindset or negative thoughts like that as a goal kicker?
Yeah, it's the mental battle that the kickers have to sort of fight with, don't they? And I was a little bit like that as a younger player too. When I first took over the kicking duties at the Melbourne Storm, if I missed one early, it would really play with my mind. And I remember having a conversation with Michael Maguire at the time, Madge Maguire. He was assistant coach, and he used to come out to me all the time. So if I had my first kick and miss, he'd grab me straight away. He was running the water, and he'd just say, "Mate, just let it go. Don't worry about it." Because it would affect my entire game, not just my follow-up kicks at goal. I'd be thinking about that first miss all game, so it would affect my dummy half play and what I was doing, with communication with the other players and all that type of stuff. So it's a battle. I overcame it, but it takes time and it takes work, and it's more about your ability mentally to just let that go, and then to focus on what's important in your next job.
Yeah, when you're very conscientious and when you wear responsibility and you think it's your responsibility to be doing things for the team and you get it wrong, it does weigh on you. That takes it. Yeah, Jimmy Maloney didn't care. Jimmy, the goldfish.
That's
just
right.
Didn't bat an eyelid. Might have missed 4 tackles and then stands in behind in the in goal area, bagging everyone for missing tackles.
That's right.
Like he was the best at just moving on. Just moving on.
I love that yarn. Morning, Brandy, Vossy and Smithy. My mum's superpower, providing me with 6 million tonnes of something that I mention I may like. If I say, oh, those bananas look nice, I will end up with a lifetime supply on my kitchen table, and I'm 52. Charles from Bronte. There is a bit of that.
Oh, wow.
There is a bit of that. You say, oh, gee, that tastes nice, and you end up getting it for the next 3 years. But no, that happens. It's beautiful that we can pay tribute to our mums. This week. Boys, my mum's superpower is no matter the situation or circumstance, she's always the most caring, loving, considerate and devoted mum, especially considering she has this rat bag as a son. Also bakes a mean lasagna. You're my world. Love your mum. Craig from Alexandra Hills. It's going to be nice and positive the feedback from our listeners this week. Make sure you got something planned Sunday, Cameron. It's hard for football commentators to make Mother's Day special because we always seem to be working. So we do have to make sure we get it right this week, Cameron.
Yes.
Quick tip on Thursday night, Melbourne-Brisbane. Cameron, have you got a clear thought this far out, straight off the back of Magic Round?
Yeah, look, well, straight off the Magic Round, I'd say Broncos. Off each team's performances, the Storm have got to turn around their lackluster performance very quickly, and maybe that's a positive, Vossy, is that there's a 5-day turnaround. So it's a quick transition from one game to the other. They're down in Melbourne, of course, but the Broncos, Payne Haas, his return, and Ezra Mam, they're just a completely different team with those players in it. Particularly Payne Haas. He played 60 minutes straight. I know he had a week's freshen up with that suspension, but he played 60 straight, ran for 184 metres, and the combination that he and Patrick Carrigan have in the middle, geez, it's going to take a huge defensive effort from Melbourne, their ruck, to contain those two to have any chance on Thursday night.
I'm going the early upset.
All right, it'll
Storm
come
to
around.
win.
Oh,
Storm to win.
Brandy.
Storm to win.
there
They
you
bounce
go.
back. Bounce back.
Yep.
No, that's the earliest you've ever tipped, Brandy. The earliest you've ever tipped. It'll come round quick enough. Thursday night. Cameron, thank you. It's just flown by this hour. Captain's run midweek with Denon, and then we're back into round number 11 of the NRL, mate. Have a great week.
See you next week.